And what he does is he leads man to recognize his sin. John Paul II, referring really to chapter 16, verse 8 of John's Gospel. And we just came out of reading this in the last week or so, probably this week. And when he comes, he will convince the world concerning sin and righteousness and judgment. This is Christ telling the apostles what the Holy Spirit's going to do. He makes us aware of sin in our lives and in the world around us. When you know something's not right, that's the Holy Spirit working within you. The Spirit's mission is to convince and convict. And Christ made a promise that John records in chapter 16, verse 13. When he says, when he comes, the Spirit of truth will guide you to all truth. He will not speak on his own, but he will speak what he hears, and he will declare to you the things that are coming. He didn't drop the G when he said it. So the recognition of sin. The second thing that the Holy Spirit does is inspires the teaching authority of the church to teach us. This ties into what I've been talking about. We are the church. And a lot of times we get caught into this trap of thinking, well, that's Father's job or that's the bishop's job. Their primary job, gentlemen, is to teach us. To be our spiritual leaders, and then we're the ones that are supposed to be going out and doing the majority of the work. Just like the apostles. In the 28th chapter of Matthew, he sends them out to all the nations. That's us. So, when we go to Mass, I know some of you, I don't know how comfortable you are doing this, but I really recommend taking notes at Mass when you're hearing the homily. You've started to do that.
Matthew Kelly suggests that.
Okay.
In fact, if you go to one of the seminars, he'll even give you a little book so you can take it to Mass and make notes.
All right. Do you have your little notebook that you use for that?
Yeah. There's something in there every day just about every day since the first of the year.
Outstanding.
I used to take my notes on my phone, but I had too many crazy looks. People thought I was texting during Mass, and I didn't want to be a source of scandal for anybody. So I started using a book like that to take notes too. Okay? Because you know what happens? Half an hour after you leave Mass, and you forgot what the homily was all about. Okay, and sometimes I find myself writing a lot. We went to Mass last week at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in Plano, and Father Bradley's got to be the quickest homilist in the West. Because this was a Sunday Mass, and he gave like a 7-minute homily. But you know what? It was packed full of a lot of stuff. It was a short homily, but there was no waste in it. It was all meaningful to what the gospel talked about that particular Sunday. And I know that sometimes our homilists here sometimes will go on, and when they should have stopped, they keep going.
One thing it does, though, is it keeps you involved in the homily.
Yes, it does.
Because you're still waiting for something that you want to write down. So, even a long, dry homily, you get more out. I get a lot more out of Mass ever since I started doing this.
And it's not enough to just take the notes. You should go back and review them. And if you're going to daily Mass, then you're really going to start seeing some things jump out at you. And that'll help you not only in just your own spiritual journey and growing. But maybe if you're going through a particular challenge in life where you're trying to discern it, maybe just pop out of your own notes. I don't know if that's ever happened to you.
Yeah,
Probably has, right?
You know, one thing, going from a weekly to a daily mass story, you realize how the story, is continuous from one day to the next, where it's kind of like on Sunday, you just thought you're getting something here or something there. But now it puts it all together for you. It's like, wow, there's something to this.
Yeah. And so that ties into what we talked about last time we got together. I know that everybody can't attend daily mass, but if you're reading the daily readings and you're reading the gospel every day, you see that. And you can see the anticipation of what's coming tomorrow. And it's Jesus that's setting it up for you. Right? All right, I want to close out with two things about the Holy Spirit. And that is that we have gifts of the Holy Spirit and fruits of the Holy Spirit. And they're not the same. These can be found in Numbers 1830 through 1832 of the Catechism. 1830 to 1832. So the gifts of the Holy Spirit are wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, piety, and fear of the Lord. Fear of the Lord doesn't mean that we're afraid of God. It means that we have an awe for God. If you've ever heard the phrase perfect contrition, it's closely linked to the fear of God. But it's, that it's like you're in such awe of God, you don't want to disappoint Him. You don't want to let Him down. But it's not that you're afraid of it. You think in Mass when we say it is just and right, you ever thought about what that means? What does justice mean? Anybody in here take a Philosophy 1 course in college?
One of the cardinal words.
Okay, so what is justice defined as? Just an Aristotelian definition of justice.
Giving the due that is appropriate.
Right. And so if we're giving God His due that's appropriate, what did you look up? What did you find?
Justice,
What does it say?
which consists in firm and constant will to give God and neighbor their due.
And so,
Something sticks.
and it is only,
You're right.
and it is only just and correct that we should worship God. Because He is Almighty, He is our Creator. And we're born out of His love for us. Think about that. He's thinking about us at every moment, or we would fail to exist. Poof. All right, so the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit are wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge. I'm sorry, I just went over those. The fruits of the Spirit, are charity, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, generosity, gentleness, faithfulness, modesty, self-control, and chastity. We could have a whole other talk on chastity about what it means to be chaste as a married man. It doesn't mean not having relations. It means being properly ordered. So we have, let me throw in a third element in here called charisms of the Holy Spirit. All that I've described, the gifts that I've described, are mostly for your own spiritual development. And the charisms that you're given, and I don't have a list for those, and I would argue that the list would be too long to share with you. Are those gifts and talents instilled within you for the benefit of the church and the benefit of others? Why are you making the face?
I'm thinking of some, like speaking in tongues and preaching, and there's a scriptural reference.
Yeah,
I think it's
and
Paul.
when I was putting together my notes, I did not write down that particular passage.
I mean, there's a list of things.
There is a list,
Yeah.
but it's not meant to be an exhaustive list. I'll make sure that those are on the post-its related to this. The thing that I wanted you to leave here with is there are two different types, and I'm using the word gifts very loosely, from the Holy Spirit. Those that are meant for your own individual spiritual development so that you can grow in holiness. And there are those that Lyndon would call your talent. You know, when we talk about almsgiving, we talk about time, treasure, and talent. This is the talent part that Lyndon always likes to talk about. It's the gifts that you've been given for the benefit of others. You know, like maybe you have the gift of speaking in public. Maybe you're called to be a lecturer. You know, maybe you have a gift, and this is why I say it's not an exhaustive list, a gift of administration. You know, that you're, I know that's not one of my gifts, and I don't do a good job with the details of things like that. That you help with administration of whether it's working in an office or out in the world. But it's for the benefit of the growth of the church externally, not for your own development internally. Am I making sense?